From the heart of Hawkeye Nation comes the show that dissects the plays, debates the calls, and celebrates the victories. This isn't just a podcast. This is your unfiltered access to the mind of two diehard fans. They live and breathe black and gold, and they're here to give you the honest, raw takes you won't find anywhere else. Get ready for deep dive analysis, passionate debate, and a unique perspective on the team you love. This is Punting is Winning with JD and Keith.
Bye week. So spend it a little bit differently than I normally would have. Probably had less anxiety during the week, during the weekend, and just kind of let myself watch some games and enjoy it.
No stress Saturday is what I call it.
Yeah. But we'll get into that. First, let's take care of some stuff from last week. We asked the question of the week last week was, what was Kirk Ferentz's record coming off the bye weeks? Didn't have anybody answer this week. I think we had a little technical difficulties on the podcast last week with some audio issues. Didn't notice until somebody brought it up, and hopefully we got those fixed this week. So probably led to
we apologize for that.
Less viewership and nobody answering the question. The answer was 11-13 is his record coming off a bye week. 2 of those losses on those 13 losses have been Ohio State being the week coming off the bye week. So nothing really to be too ashamed of there, because I think a lot of people would have that on their record. But still 11-11 is not overly good when you've got that extra week to prepare. So hopefully this week we can push that up to 12-13.
Most importantly, though, this week is get some guys healthy. That is a numero uno priority, is getting guys healthy. Mark Gronowski, maybe we can get Reese Vanderzee see the field a little bit this weekend, although I don't see him on the 2 deeps this week. But it would be nice to at least give him some plays or 2 just to get him back into the rhythm of things. Maybe we need him later on in the season. But, I'm not, at this point, I'm not too terribly concerned with the receivers. I'm more worried about the guys getting the passing, throwing the ball to them and getting them the ball in space. So that's, at this point, that's right now the number one concern for me is who's throwing them the ball.
Yeah. Well, let's take care of the new question of the week first, and then we'll jump into a preview of the Wisconsin game, and then we'll talk a little bit about maybe a little bit last week's action that happened and some of the strangeness of college football that happens each week.
Well, this week's question of the week is very related to what we were just talking about. The question is, will Mark Gronowski start against Wisconsin, and how much will he play? And right now he's listed on the 2 deeps as the number 1 quarterback. However, like you and I spoke earlier, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be the starter. It just means that he's listed as potentially the starter, but I believe it's a day-to-day situation. We should know more tomorrow. Tomorrow is Kirk's presser. It's usually Tuesdays about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they do show him on Google, or not Google, but YouTube TV and YouTube. So you can watch that, and he could probably provide more insight as to what's going on with Mark's health and his knee and that going forward.
I'm sure that'll be question number 1 by any and all.
That should be question number 1. Anybody that's asked a different question should be looking for another job.
Yeah. Well, and more importantly, or as important as that, is getting guys that have been hurt back, like you said with Reese Vanderzee, but even the running back room, getting some of those guys back. I don't believe Jazz Patterson is available yet, but sounds like maybe Xavier Williams might be pretty close to being back, or could be back this weekend. And I didn't look. I probably should have paid closer attention. Was Seth Anderson listed on the 2 deeps?
I did not see his name on the two deeps.
Okay.
I did see
So,
Dayton
like you
Howard
said,
on there.
Well, and that's a good thing because I think
Yeah.
Dayton Howard is an underlooked weapon that they really do have, and I think they're starting to understand that.
Yeah.
So
I like him. He seems like a good player, and
yeah, I like his size, and
yeah,
looks like he's got pretty decent hands. So
yeah, exactly.
well, let's go into the Wisconsin week. Let's break this down a little bit and talk a little bit about what Wisconsin brings to the table. Did get to watch them against Michigan a little bit last week.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like Michigan pretty much owned them, but the score didn't really reflect that.
Yeah, one of the
I'll
things.
let you give me some stats on that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Wisconsin. I'll get to some stats here in a minute, but I kind of feel like Wisconsin relies really heavily on their defense, kind of like what Iowa did in the last 2 or 3 years. And I feel like that's kind of where they're at right now. And I know that there's a lot of people talking about coaching changes there, and there was talk that there was a possibility that they could be being coached by someone else coming into this week, but hopefully that's not the case. Luke Fickell would hopefully retain his job through this week, and we'll see what happens after that, because I don't want to have to go into a situation where we're facing an interim coach that the kids will rally behind. I mean, example is UCLA this week when they took Penn State, and we'll talk about that later. Wisconsin is 2-3. Their 2 wins are over Miami of Ohio, 17-0. And Middle Tennessee, they beat 42-10. Both those games were home games for the Badgers there in Madison. Their 3 losses are at Alabama, 38-14. Everybody loses to Alabama, seems like. They did lose to Maryland at home, 27-10. That's a little bit of a head scratcher, especially how the scoring margin, if anything else. And then last week, as we talked about earlier, they lost to Michigan 24-10 at Michigan. Michigan, the Big House is always a tough place to play. I don't know how much you take from this. I know that they're struggling with their quarterback position. They've started, I think, 3 different guys in 5 games. Last week they started a guy named Hunter Simmons, who hadn't been doing a lot of the starting. Most of their passing yards leader is Danny O'Neill, and I don't even know if he played last week. He might have played a little bit.
He was in a little bit. I think they did kind of do a rotation at times, kind of like what Iowa did last year a little bit with Brendan Sullivan, bringing him in different packages. They did do that with Danny O'Neill, and I know at one point O'Neill was in as a receiver on a play, because I remember hearing that.
Yeah, one of the things that that kind of is hurting Wisconsin is that when they brought that Williams or Edge, when they brought that Billy Edwards in from Maryland, a transfer. I think they kind of expected him to be the guy, and he got hurt pretty early on. I know Alabama maybe, and hasn't really been back since. He has spotted a little bit coming in here and there, but I don't think he's truly 100% healthy. And I don't know if he'll be healthy this week or not. I know that they held him out for Michigan. I'm not sure if he'll be available for this week or not. That's up to them. But I do want to go through some stats real quick. They're averaging 200 pass yards a game. That's 95th in the nation. They're averaging 109 rushing yards per game. That's 118th in the nation. Their points for is 18.6 average. That's 126th. And their points against, which is actually, we talked about defense again, is 19.8 points per game, and that is 39th ranked. Now I wanted to contrast and compare between Iowa on these stats. So I'm going to give Wisconsin's and Iowa's rankings and maybe some stats go with it. Wisconsin's rush defense is number 6 nationally. It was pretty good, 75 yards per game average. Iowa's is 4th, averaging 69.4 yards rush against. Third down conversions. This is third down conversions for on offense. Wisconsin is number 93, and they average 37.3% of the time converting a third down. Iowa is number 26. They average getting a first down on third down every 48.6%. Scoring defense. Wisconsin, as we talked about, was 39th. They average giving up 19.8 points per game. Iowa is number 19, average giving up 15.6 points per game. So there's just some compare and contrast there. Total defense, Wisconsin's number 40 in the nation. They average giving up 316.6 yards per game. Iowa's number 12. They give up 254.2 points yards per game. I'm battling a cold. You have to kind of give me a little bit of a pass here. Third down defense, Wisconsin's number 14 at .286, 28.6% of the time they give up a third down. And Iowa's number 40 at 34.4%. Passing efficiency defense. This is a big one because I think this is how Iowa's going to have to win the game. Wisconsin is 118th. Their efficiency rating is 149.9. Iowa is number 51 passing efficiency defense at 121.61 rating. That's not yards per game. That's just their rating when they average everything out. So does Iowa hold an advantage? I think Iowa needs to throw the ball to win. I think Wisconsin's defense, rush defense, is pretty good, pretty stellar. I don't know that they've given up. They haven't given up many rushing yards. Even to Alabama when they played them, it was, I think, under 100.
71.
Yeah, there you go. So Iowa had better bring the passing game with them. Now, there's variations of a passing game. There's long down the field, deep passes, and then there's, the wide receiver screens, the throwing the ball to the back, out of the backfield. There's smaller, shorter passing yards that you can get that may be open, just dink and dunk type stuff down the field. I think there's going to be a lot of field goals kicked in this game, providing the weather's good.
Yeah. And I think you can take, you're looking at those stats. You think about the fact that Michigan, who has not had a great passing offense over the last few years, similar to Iowa, threw for 270 yards against them.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't equate to as many points as you would expect. So they did throw the ball across the field on. So I think you're right. That is where Iowa has to make their hay. They can throw the ball to open up the run. I did think Michigan ended up rushing for over 100 yards, but I don't remember how many. It was like 110, something like that, maybe.
Still not a lot.
No,
considering that Michigan's got some very good rushers, some good ball carriers.
Yeah, and I think one of the runs that I saw was might have been like a 35 or 40 yard rush. And, so basically after that, it was the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yeah.
Big 10 play there. But, I think Iowa's going to have to throw the ball. And I think that's if Gronowski is available, I think that's where he doesn't have to run it and he can just throw it. I think he can do that. That's kind of where I'm hoping he's available. I don't know. I'm on the fence as to whether you need him or not, because watching that game, they played Michigan tougher than I thought they would. And, because we kind of talked about how Michigan was a 16.5-point favorite going into that game, didn't win it by 16.5, won it by 14. And we were worried that they were going to blow them out bad enough that they were going to, they were going to fire Luke Fickell and make him walk back from Ann Arbor. And that didn't happen. So I don't want to say you don't need Gronowski in this game, but I'm hoping that you can get by without having to have him in his normal self, so to speak. I don't know. It's going to be one of those that I'm a lot more. I don't know. I'm more worried about this game than I should be, or I feel like I should be.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing with me is that I feel more worried. I feel more concerned about the outcome of the game than I did before, strictly because of Mark Gronowski's health. That is it. I think if he's 100% healthy, I'm not sure I'm as concerned as I feel like I am.
Well, and I think part of my concern comes from what happened over the weekend too. You've got an 0-4 UCLA. Penn State goes out to UCLA. Iowa's got to go to Madison. Now, granted, that's not crossing time zones, but it's never easy to win at somebody's place, no matter how poor that other team is most of the time. Now, granted, there are times where it's like you can walk into a building and you're just far superior in talent, and it doesn't really matter as much. But I think you've probably seen games where, the teams with the far superior talent have walked into those places, and it's been, you expect them to walk out of there with a 42-0 game, and it's 24-10. And it keeps keeps you a little bit more on pins and needles throughout the game. And the old expression, if you allow an inferior team to stick around long enough, they will bite you at some point. That's the things that I worry about.
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't worry. Like you said, I probably wouldn't worry as much if I knew I had a healthy quarterback that had been turning things around and proving that he was making strides. That's the thing we hadn't seen over the last few years. Is even when he was healthy, McNamara didn't improve. Even when they were healthy, the quarterbacks didn't improve. I was seeing an improvement week to week to week out of Mark Gronowski and the way he went about the preparation, the way he went about handling himself, the way
game management,
he posed himself during the game. And yes, and I hope they didn't lose any of that momentum by not having him available. If so, we'll have to deal with that. If we do not have Mark Gronowski, hopefully it's just one game.
Well, that's one of the things we just talked about. The question of the week last week was, how is Iowa do coming off a bye week? And we are coming off a bye week, and they were 11-13. That also has something that can contribute to the nervousness of me. They don't do well usually, typically coming off of a bye week. I know Wisconsin's down a little bit, but you never want to take any conference opponent. I don't care how bad they are. Look at Penn State and UCLA. Don't take them for granted. Don't think you're just going to walk in there and walk out with a win without having to try. This is going to be a difficult game. I would be absolutely shocked if Iowa beats them by more than 20 points. I would be absolutely floored. I would probably just, I don't know what I'd do, go buy a lottery ticket or something if Iowa won by more than 20 points, because it just proves that I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, I also think that they've got in the back of their mind 42-10 last year.
Yeah,
so
that's
motivation.
motivating.
Motivating factors then
Absolutely.
for them as well.
You're 100% correct. Now, so you've got a couple things that are against Iowa here. The record coming off a bye week we just talked about, the fact that Gronowski may or may not play, and if he does play, how limited is he going to be with what he can do, or does he not play at all? And we have to run Hank Brown out there, who has not got the experience. There's a lot of things. You're on the road. It's a conference away game. There's a lot of little things that could add up to make this a lot closer, or even could sway one way or the other Wisconsin into the winning column on this deal. We hope that's not the case. Obviously, as Iowa fans, we hope we go in there and win. But there's just a lot of little things that add up that could cause this to be a headache for Iowa.
Much closer game than it should be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think you made I don't know, there's an observation I've made that you kind of look at it in two different lights of, do you want to make your first start on the road or at home? Because if I'm, I look at it in two ways. If I'm making my first start at home, the pressure is on me because I got the home crowd that really wants me to perform. If I go on the road, maybe I can be a little bit more relaxed. But you're also got to look at it as you're on the road, you're with a hostile crowd, it's a double-edged sword as to how you can look at that. I don't know. You have to have a specific mindset to know whether you'd feel more comfortable starting on the road or your first time, or starting at home your first time. Obviously most people would say starting at home because you've got the home crowd behind you, but still if you've got expectations that are put on you that are maybe can be unrealistic at times. I think we expect, oh, well, this is not as good of a Wisconsin team. We should be able to roll them, and we should be able to go, their passing defense is not very good. So we should, even though we haven't thrown for over 200 yards yet, we should be able to go out there and throw for 250 to 300 yards against them. Well, woulda, shoulda, coulda. And this is a situation where I'm not taking any of that for granted, because, who knows? Maybe Hank Brown with a week of, or almost 2 weeks of prep, comes out and can sling the ball all over the field against Wisconsin, and he throws for 250 to 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. We don't know. Am I expecting that? No. But we just don't know. I would feel more comfortable with Gronowski there.
Let's put our heads in the Wisconsin helmets for a second. What are you thinking? You're 2-3. There's a lot of controversy around your coach, whether he should be there or not. A lot of fans are saying, let's fire this guy. Let's move on. Has he lost the team? Has Fickell completely lost the team at this point, 5 games in? I don't think so. But are they starting to kind of get those little doubts in their mind that things are going to continue to go south and that they're not going to have a season that I don't think at this point, I'm not sure I think their schedule's pretty tough.
Oh, yeah.
I think that they're looking at maybe not going to a bowl game. I mean, maybe 4 wins.
I based on what I remember seeing, this might be their second weakest game on the schedule, left on the schedule.
Yeah. Minnesota being the other one.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they've got Oregon, they've got Penn State, they've got Ohio State, I believe, maybe, or Indiana, one of the two. It's like, I know their schedule was absolutely brutal, and when they won those 2 on-conference games, we're like, yeah, I don't know that they're going to win another game.
Right. And that's just going to add to the fuel of the fire of let's fire Luke Fickell. And so, in my estimation, you're looking at a completely different coaching staff next season at Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. I'm almost 100% positive that he'll be gone by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Or before.
And that was the question this week going in is, do they fire him now or do they wait? I think it comes down to a situation is what do they beat Iowa? If they don't beat Iowa, do they fire him then and just start over?
I imagine what Wisconsin might do is probably let him ride through the rest of the year, but he knows that he's gone, just simply because the buyout will be less at the end of the year. It's the only reason. There's no point in, if you lose to Iowa, you basically have one toss-up game left on your schedule against Minnesota. You're not going to make a bowl game. So what's your motivation to fire him at this point of the year as opposed to letting him just finish out the year, fire him for less money, and cut and run at that point? That's the only thing that I can think of.
Yeah, the only caveat to that would be like attendance figures. People giving up on the team, with the fans saying, "I'm not going to support this. I'm not watching this anymore. I'm not going to go to the games. I'm not going to spend my money on
fans."
Yeah, they typically, once they buy their ticket, they're going. They'll go to.
They're like
no
Iowa
what.
fans. I mean, they're going to stick through it.
They're pretty rabid. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or Nebraska fans. They're pretty. Yeah. They will show up.
Yeah.
They still love their team. They may not be happy with it, but they still love their team. So,
Yeah, it may not be the 90s anymore, Nebraska, but, there's still something to play for.
Right. So,
do you want to talk about this weekend?
Yeah.
In college football, what we saw?
Surprises in things that we saw, things that maybe you expected, but still kind of surprised you a little bit.
Things you completely didn't expect.
I didn't expect Cincinnati to have as big of a dominant lead on Iowa State. I did expect Cincinnati to play well and possibly beat them because I'm just not sold on Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously blown away by UCLA beating Penn State.
Yeah,
I am honestly surprised, as from our standpoint as fans, that Franklin was allowed to get back on the plane and go back to Happy Valley. That's kind of surprising based out of Penn State. I don't know that they don't have a history of hiring people in the middle of the season, but their expectations, especially going into this year, were much, much higher than 2 losses. And, certainly not losing to a 0-4 team that looked absolutely abysmal.
They had not led all season.
They looked lost in every game.
Yeah.
So that kind of surprised me a little bit that he was allowed to get back on the plane. Texas losing to Florida really didn't surprise me. I'm not sold on Texas either.
No.
I just, Arch Manning, yeah, he's a 5-star. He's got the Manning name, but I don't think he's got the Manning
ability.
It factor
Yeah.
by any means. And I know that, after the first week, I kind of got raked over the coals of talking about how bad Arch Manning played against Ohio State. It hadn't gotten much better.
No.
So, and I think part of that is I went back and I was watching some highlights of his, the caliber of competition that he faced. And that would be, let's put it this way, and this is the best way for me to equate it to people here in Iowa. The caliber of competition that I saw that he was facing would have been like Valley playing against Collins Maxwell Baxter. And that's nothing against CMB. I don't think they're CMB anymore. I think it's just Baxter now, but Albia, let's say. The caliber of athletes that he was playing against were the average high school kid.
In comparison.
In comparison. Not the kids that are fringe D1 players even, or, guaranteed to be a D2, D3 player. Still good. They're just not good enough to be D1. He was going up, it was man against boys in a lot of places. I mean, watching those guys run up, trying to chase him down, it's like, it would look like me trying to chase him down at 50 years old. So that's one of the reasons why I'm just have not really been sold on him. So it doesn't surprise me that Florida beat him. I just don't think he's got the Manning it factor like the others had.
Well, I think there's 3 teams that have started in the top 10 of the season that have checked themselves out of the playoffs already. Texas, I think 2 losses right now with an entire season left to go. They still have to probably either play Alabama and or Georgia and or Oklahoma. And I know they play Oklahoma because I think that's coming this weekend. Probably. There's a potential loss there. That's 3. There's probably a loss to Alabama. You could lose to Kentucky or Vanderbilt or whoever in that SEC.
They could end
Texas
up with
A&M.
6 losses.
I don't know their schedule. They could end up with 6 losses. And this was a top team. A lot of places had them number 1. Mm-hmm. Some had them 2. Speaking of number 2, that would have been Penn State. They just went out and got beat. They were down 27-7 at the half to a team that hadn't even led a game all season. Ended up getting beat 42-37. They did come back, but by that time it was too late. They've still got Ohio State on the road yet. There's 3 losses. They lose to Iowa on the road. If they do lose to Iowa on the road, there's 4 losses. They're not making it. Clemson plays in I wouldn't call it a weak ACC, but they're certainly not on the level of the Big Ten or the SEC. ACC. It is a 1 bid. And who gets the bid? At this point, Clemson's on the outside looking in. So
Clemson would have to make the championship game and win it to even have a chance.
And there's still a possibility of that.
3 losses, I don't see that.
It's going to be very difficult. And if they do make it in, they're going to be like the 12th seed or, somewhere in the 9 to 12 seed. It's just, I just don't see those 3 teams that were in the top. Some of them were even in the top 5. Weren't all 3 of those teams in the top 5? And I know I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, oh, those preseason rankings mean nothing. And that's true. In this case, they don't mean anything. But that's the gauge that we start the season out with. We have to start out with something. And so when you put the prognosticators and the writers and all the people that watch college football on a very detailed, much more than even the average fan, they look at who's coming back, who's still here, who's transferred in, and they look at that and they try to gauge the power rankings of these teams. And that's how they go about putting their rankings together. And to have 3 of the top 5 really that are on the outside right now looking in, that's pretty amazing at this point. And that tells me that there's a lot of parity and that the transfer portal really can bring teams that were bad back to reality, and also can take teams that don't mesh well together, players that are more for themselves rather than for the team, and you get some cancers on teams. I'm not picking names. I'm not doing any of that kind of thing. But what I'm getting at is sometimes you can bring in all this great talent, but if they don't mesh as a team, if they don't play together, it doesn't really matter. That's the job of the coach, is to get these individual personalities to work together as a team. Check your ego at the door. We are a team. And that is very, very difficult because, even a kid could say, sure, coach, I'm leaving my ego at the door. But when the cleats are on the turf, he's thinking about himself. That's just the way it is. And kids are that way, and that's not how you win as a team.
I think I could throw a couple other teams into that mix as well. That
Okay.
I think it leads credence to what I was saying earlier of throw those preseason rankings out the door because they don't really mean much until the 5th week. Florida started out ranked in the top 10, if I remember right, and if not the top 10, they were at least top 15. They're out. How about Kansas State?
Oh, what a disaster!
Yeah. So, or Notre Dame fighting their way back in, even though they probably should have been out at 0-2, should have been out of the top 25 at that point. But
I still think
they're
you'll see
still
them in the playoff.
But that was a top 5 team,
right? I think they've played their toughest part of their schedule already. I don't think they're.
Well, I think they still have USC.
They got USC yet on the 18th. They got USC. I believe
they still have the service academies left.
It is a home game, though, I think, in Notre Dame. So, pretty sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's the surprising stuff from the weekend. I'm
impressed by how well Texas Tech is playing.
Yeah. Texas Tech is a very legit team.
And I was excited about Vanderbilt's opportunity, but they were brought down to reality this weekend. So, Yeah,
the only thing about Vanderbilt that, I mean, it's Vanderbilt, so you don't have a whole lot of bad you can say about them because they're typically not a team that you really talk about. But I don't like the cockiness and of their quarterback,
Diego.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, I don't have anything against him. I just think that guy's he's a little full of himself. But again, some people would say that's a good thing to have as a quarterback, to have that little bit of that swagger and that cockiness. I think he just kind of took it a little bit too far. There's being cocky and there's being arrogant.
For a last weekend, that was really supposed to be not a lot of marquee matchups and a lot of games that you kind of feel like weren't really watchable, kind of not like it had been. It was kind of fun. I really enjoyed it. Of course, part of that was that we didn't have to watch, an Iowa game and be stressed out by it and that kind of thing. So that was kind of fun. I watched a little bit of the Ohio State-Minnesota game till that became a blowout, which is about 7 or 8 minutes into the game. But let's look at what's going on coming up, especially there's one game that I really got my eye on this weekend, and I think I can watch it, but I'm not sure if it's a night game or not. I have to look. That's that Oregon-Indiana game. That one is intriguing to me. This is going to be a measuring stick on how good Indiana really is.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be up against a team that is just as dynamic, if not more so, than they are on both sides of the ball. Well, on both sides, really. I know that.
Yeah, Oregon's defense isn't as good as they have been, but their offense is as good or not, if not better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that Oregon has a poor defense. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that based off of last couple of years, I think this is if the last couple of years the defense was ranked 20th, this is like a 35 or 40th ranked defense type. It's still really good. It's just not quite up to where it has been, but I think the offense might be better than it has been.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. I don't believe Ohio State and Oregon play until probably the championship game. Because I think right now that's at this point in the season, I think it's a foregone conclusion that's who it's going to be. Providing
barring a huge collapse,
weird injuries or something similar to that somebody gets hurt that's really important. Like maybe the quarterback at Ohio State gets hurt, but they can always throw another 5-star in there. It's probably just as good. Same thing with Oregon. So I really don't. I feel like those two are the shoe-ins now that Penn State's checked themselves out. Indiana, I think they're number 3 in the list. If I had to do my power rankings, I'd probably go Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. And then after that, it's everybody else. Illinois, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. I just don't think – I'm not sold on Michigan. I think they're a one-dimensional offense. And I think one of these days they run up against somebody that's really good on rush defense. And I think that they can hold them in check because I don't think they can pass that well. So, I'm not going to have – and USC showed themselves, when they had to travel east against Illinois. I think Illinois had that game in hand, and they just kind of let them back in.
I think the wild card is Nebraska at this point. just because I don't know. I mean, has Nebraska beat anybody that's like an upper division? I mean, I guess they beat Cincinnati, but first game of the year.
Yeah, first game.
I'll give them that. It was on the
Neutral
site.
Mm-hmm.
But I Michigan State's not an upper tier team. They lost to Michigan. Who else have they beaten in the conference?
They just have the 2 games, right? Is that all? I'd have to look.
I thought they had 3 because they haven't had a bye week.
The bye week yet? Okay, let me look at Nebraska schedule.
Maybe they had their bye week last week.
Okay, their games, Nebraska's games are they beat Cincinnati 2017. They beat Akron 68-0. They beat Houston Christian University 59-7.
Baptist, whatever.
And they lost to Michigan 30-27, and they beat Michigan State 38-27.
Okay.
And they have Maryland coming up at Maryland on Saturday. And
I think that'll be a much better game than I originally thought.
I'm surprised by Maryland.
Although I'm still on the side that Maryland will always be Maryland and undisciplined and find ways to lose. Hence the reason they had a 20-point lead with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter and got beat.
Yeah, that was kind of a surprise. But by the same token, I was surprised they were up that much.
Yeah. I think the other game that I did watch that I enjoyed watching was TCU in Colorado.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that one.
That was a 21-21 game until about the last 6-7 minutes of the game, something like that. And then TCU scored a couple of touchdowns late to win by 14. One of them actually with, I want to say 20 seconds left. They went for it on like 4th and 6 or 4th and 7 and threw a nice little fade pass into the corner. And
let's drop back to Nebraska. I've got their schedule sitting in front of me here, and I was just kind of looking at it.
It's not a very tough schedule.
It's not. They've got Maryland at Maryland on the 11th, which is next Saturday. Then they're at Minnesota, pretty winnable.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've got Northwestern at home. Then they've got USC at home, which we'll see. Then they go out to UCLA. They play Penn State away on the 22nd of November. And then, of course, Iowa right after that at home. So outside of Penn State and USC, and we don't know about UCLA, if that's going to be a rallying cry for them for this week, for this season going forward, is the win over Penn State. Anytime an East Coast team travels to the West, it always seems like it's a trouble issue. It's always something.
Well, there's a good chance they could lose to Penn State, USC, and of course they'll lose 13-10 to Iowa.
Let's hope.
And then Maryland could be a thorn in their side. It just depends on. I'm not sold on Mike Loxley having control of his team. They commit stupid penalties. They commit stupid mistakes that cost them games.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that was what the case was against Washington. I think Washington just finally woke up. And then when the pressure was put on, the freshman QB was unable to deliver, which I'm not surprised. It's very difficult for a freshman to be the savior. It happens some places, but it doesn't. It's more often than not, it's not the case.
Right.
So that's to me that's kind of a toss-up game because it's on the road for Nebraska. I think if all holds true, they're probably looking at 4 losses.
I look at this game this weekend as kind of a. I know this is going to sound kind of obvious. But I look at this game as it won't surprise me if Maryland wins, but it won't surprise me if Nebraska puts 50 on them.
Right. Yeah, I have the same feeling. So.
Just my observation, I guess.
We want to switch gears real quick and talk a little bit about women's basketball.
Big commit.
Will be arriving next year.
Huge commitment this week from McKenna Lichko, a 6'2" combo guard, probably looking at forward,
yeah.
3 or 4, maybe at Iowa. I wouldn't think she'd be a 5. The way she handles the ball, I wouldn't put her at 5. That's just not a very good use of her skills. So I would put her at a 4 or a 3, probably a 3. Small forward, shooting forward. She comes in as the 6th rated prospect of the class of 2026, and she is the highest rated recruit coming into Iowa since Caitlin Clark, who was number 4 in 2020, was it? 2019?
Yeah, I think 2019 maybe.
And one of the things that I like about this girl is that she seemed to be extremely excited to be at Iowa. It's like she's just, I get it. That's a big commitment, and you've got to go all in with who you pick. But one of the things that might be to Iowa's advantage is her ability to bring in other recruits with her, like Addie Bjorn, and maybe a couple of the others that we're, just not top of my head right now that may be looking at Iowa. And she might be able to do a little recruiting for us above and beyond the coaching staff. That could help. We brought in Addie Deal, who will be playing this season. Then you bring in this Wilichko and maybe bring in Addison Deal. There's just
Addie Bjorn.
Oh yeah, Addie Bjorn. Sorry. There's just so many good things to think about here with Iowa. They're on that ascent again, and it all started with, really, if you think about it, it all started with Megan Gustafson, and then Monica Sonano and Caitlin Clark brought it even higher, and it just continues. And I'm excited for women's basketball, and I can say in my lifetime, there's very few times in my life I've ever said that, and it's been just in the last, since Caitlin probably. Before it was when women's basketball was on TV, I was like, well, if I'm around to catch it, I'll catch it. Now it's entertainment TV, and it is. I have to sit down and put off whatever I'm doing to watch.
Well,
and I don't see that stopping.
And I think, the fact that the men's team has been very bland the last few years has kind of helped that.
Right.
But, in this sense, we know the girls more than we know the guys right now because we don't know the team yet.
And they've already sold out.
Yeah.
They've sold all the tickets already for the season. Yeah, that's good job, Iowa fans, for supporting women's basketball like they do. That absolutely 100% has a bearing on what you get for recruits. Kids come in and they see themselves in a packed arena, loud crowd, really behind you. There is so much for that because there's a lot of places out there, a lot of schools that don't support the women's basketball program. Even though they're good, they don't support it like Iowa does. And I think that's what gives Iowa a little bit of an advantage.
And I think that the recruits are seeing that it's not just Caitlin Clark, too. It was, okay, they sold out when Caitlin was here. They're still selling out when she's been gone. She's been gone for 2 years. This will be the third season. Second season without her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're still selling out, and the fan support is just rabid. And, you've got the continuity to an extent, and the coaching staff is, Jan Jansen's been there forever as well, but you've got some new younger coaches coming in and helping out. A couple other names that I've heard that I'm excited about on the potential recruiting side is Jenica Lewis and Vienna Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, you get Addison Bjorn and Jenica Lewis and Vienna Murray. That's like that 2005 Iowa football class that was ranked 6th or something like that in the country.
6th or 8th.
This is going to be higher than that. This is probably you get those girls, sorry, not guys, get those girls committed and on that team, that's a top 3, top 4 recruiting class in the country overall. Especially
with what's there now, the freshmen that were there, and now who will be sophomores, and then Addie Deal that comes in, and she's a freshman, and Layla Hayes, and some of those that Journey Houston that are freshmen. You're talking about talent, like on a consistent level, not just one or two people who are really talented with other girls who are, good background players. This is how you build a dynasty.
Yes, exactly. And this is how it starts. Now, they've got to play to maintain that. Now,
yes.
If they play together and they play to the caliber that we expect them, I was looking at perennial Elite Eight, Final Four championship teams, championship game teams over these next 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Now, am I saying that they're going to be in the Final Four every year? No. Am I saying they're going to be, championship quality? Yes.
I think they'll be Big Ten championship, at least in the conversation every year for being, up there. I'm sure there's going to be Ohio State's going to have a good year. Some
USC,
Indiana will be decent. Maryland will have a good team occasionally that will be right there battling for a championship. But I think USC, I keep forgetting about. Yeah, we keep talking about, Iowa on a consistent level being in the top 3 or 4 or even higher from here on out, at least for the foreseeable future. And that's something that we haven't been able to say for a while. And I'm excited for that. And now if we can get the men's team on that same level, there's an awful lot to be happy about as an Iowa fan.
Yeah, I would agree.
So,
anything else you want to talk about?
No, we want to keep this a little bit shorter this time, but we'll talk about the Wisconsin game next week, and we'll preview the Penn State game. I think it's Wisconsin,
Penn State,
Penn State.
Or is it Minnesota?
No, Penn State.
Penn State, then Minnesota, then Oregon.
Yeah,
right. Because there'll be 3 home.
And there is an off week in there too. I think it's after Minnesota. I think November 1st is an off week. So
we have 3 home games as well, which is kind of nice.
Right. We'll do all of that next week. So we'll talk about this week's game. Obviously, we always do. Any other recruiting things that happen. We might even start talking a little bit about what we're hearing about coming out of practices for men's and women's basketball. That's already started, so you're hearing about a little bit here and there about practices. I'm not hearing a lot, which I don't really want to hear a lot right now. I kind of want to wait and listen to what's going on later, closer to the season starting, which is in early November. So about a month.
Basically in a month.
Yeah.
4th of November.
It's coming fast.
It sounds like one real quick comment sounds like there's no exhibition game this year, but they are going to do a couple of those super secret scrimmages. It sounds like
for the men.
Yes, for the men. It sounds like that's at St. Louis and potentially at Carver for Texas Tech.
Okay. But those are scrimmages, and they're probably not open to the public, or maybe they would. They probably aren't. Okay, but the women do have an exhibition game.
Yes.
And I couldn't even tell you who they play. I'd have to look it up. But I know that they do have an exhibition game.
Yeah, that part I knew too, because I thought it was kind of strange that the men weren't going to have an exhibition game, because it was a prime opportunity to get the chance to showcase your new team against somebody and let the fans kind of show up and show out. So that was kind of surprising that we weren't having an open exhibition.
Right.
But he wants to. Those open exhibitions don't really give you a whole lot other than just allow you to play against somebody that's not your own team. I don't know that you get a ton out of those sometimes.
Right.
Just the caliber of competition. So taking a couple of scrimmages against, a legit Power 4 team and a very good mid-major team in St. Louis, that's probably going to get you a heck of a lot more understanding of what your team is than playing against Minnesota Duluth or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And the women's exhibition is probably going to be a situation where if you want to watch it, you're going to have to buy a ticket. I doubt very much they'll show it. Even on Big Ten Plus, I doubt they would show it. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll surprise me. But I have a feeling that if you want to watch the women's exhibition game when it comes up, it probably will be.
I don't know. I feel like the Iowa women,
they're a big draw.
Kind of have become a pretty big draw, especially for the Big Ten network. So I'd be surprised if their exhibition game wasn't shown somewhere.
I hope they show it, because I'd like to watch it.
Yep.
And if it's during the week, I doubt very much I'm going to have a chance to go, or just weekdays, weeknights just don't seem to work out very good.
Yeah, same here. So, all right, let's wrap it up. As always, hopefully we've have our technical difficulties from last week fixed, our audio issues. Give us a like, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We did, like I said, we did have very low viewership this last week, I think, because it sounds like it was kind of unlistenable. So we do apologize for that. I didn't hear it on my end when I did the editing, so I don't know what the problem was. So hopefully we've got that fixed, and check us out on our social media pages, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify. If you feel so inclined to buy some merchandise, that'd be great. We got our merchandise store out there as well. You got the QR code at the beginning of the video. You can always scan that and check things out. It doesn't hurt to check things out if you just want to look at stuff, because some of it's pretty reasonably priced. And you're looking for a new water jug or coffee mug or something like that, maybe give us a shot, give us a look, and help support us a little bit there too. So
one other thing too is if you would subscribe and if you could put a comment down, maybe answer this week's question of the week about Mark Gronowski, whether he'll start, how much he'll play. That would help. Just comments, be interactive with us. We really like that. And on Hawkeye, get the Wisconsin game.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little promo giveaway thing for possibly our 100th subscriber if we can get to that point. So keep that in mind as well. All right, well, let's roll out of here and hope the Hawks have a good showing this weekend and walk away 4-2. And we see a little bit of our health issues taken care of. Get some guys back. Looking a little bit more like we were at the beginning of the Indiana game, let's say.
Yeah. We're going to need everybody for Penn State. Even though they're wounded a little bit, I still think they're still pretty tough team.
I agree. All right. Well, let's give it a go, Hawks, and get out of here.
Hey, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.